What I like to do first is talk to you about corn, with support from the Corn and Grain Sorghum Board. What we've been doing is trying to validate our nitrogen rates. And here we are focusing on nitrogen rates for silty clays and clay soils. We do this, of course, for economic reasons, but also for environmental related. In case we have regulations, we need to have the data to show regulators that our recommendations have some backup. This is the typical response that we see. You see here, it is obvious here, one of these sides is a sill loam, the other one is a clay. I think it is obvious that this is a sill loam. For different reasons, we have different yield potentials. And our recommendations are probably between here and here. That's where we are trying to fine tune. We know that. And on clay soils, I know our recommendations are 300 or more. And but based on the data we have collected, I think we are more or less around here. We are looking at rotations with soybeans, with cotton, and we are looking at different hybrids. And what we've seen is, when we grow after soybeans, we tend to get a 10 bushels increase. It is not fertilizer, it's probably just the rotational benefits. And Paul, can you come? Let me, before I do, something I do, I'm collaborating with Dr. Dharmendra Saraswat, one of our engineers, and we are looking at the potential benefits of active sensors, what Henry has there. Come here. That's a green seeker. Green seeker is just a brand name of a sensor that measures the level, how green a plant is. So if we were to run this unit through here, we'll get low readings there and we'll get high readings here. So we're trying to use this technology to make decisions in terms of needs for supplementation of nitrogen. Ideally, what my long-term, I don't know, somehow ideal goal will be to use this technology to decide whether or not we need to apply the pre-tassel. Now, we are looking, Green Seeker is just the brand name. As you see, that's a handheld sensor. We have also sensors mounted on a tractor. We are looking into other options. We realize that's not really practical. It might do a good job for research purposes. But I'm collaborating with a researcher in Australia and looking into a sensor that we can put in the belly of a crop duster. So if we get to that point, that'll be great. That will certainly be enable us to try to implement some of this technology. The information, again, we go to different places. We set these plots and this is the type of information we get, okay? We always use relative yield to try to, it's a way to standardize because, no years are equal. Every year we might get different yield responses, so we try to standardize. And our approach is, where it says 95% yield whenever it intersects, that's where our recommendation falls. That will be the maximum nitrogen rate we recommend. This is clay soils again. Something you can see is that as we get close, the spread is narrower. This means that we don't really need to apply any more than 300 units of N here, this particular case. Something also is, we need to talk a little bit about the nature of our recommendation. I think all along it's been an error, in my opinion, to tell you need to apply 250 rather than an optimum rate. There is really an optimum range, okay? Because if you see here, 95% yield potential is like here. So we have some years where we get, maximized yields at a lower rate. So our recommendations are for you to use as a guide to fine-tune your own, And in reality, the benefit of this information, in my opinion, it's not this simply. Can you turn around? It is actually on my ability to pull all the data together. You see, what we have here is, okay, percent of maximum yield potential observed at different rates. For instance, and I don't have all the rates there, but in 13 side years, if I didn't put any nitrogen, on an average, I got 13% yield potential. If I apply 100 pounds, on an average, I got 53% yield potential. And if I apply 200 pounds, on an average, I got 86 yield potential. But I also noticed that the yellow is 200 pounds, that 1, 2, 3, 4 of those years, I maximize my yields with 200 pounds per acre. So my point with this is, instead of me telling a farmer, this is what you need to apply, I would like for a farmer to decide, what he needs to do. If the price of fertilizer, of urea, gets to $1,200, how can a farmer decide, the risk associated with cutting down on nitrogen rates? So that's what I would like to get. And this information, again, is relevant as the number of site years. The more site years we have, the stronger this data become. Because again, if I know that in this particular case, I'm talking about that 30% of the time yields were maximized with 200 pounds per acre. 100% of the time they were maximized with 300 pounds per acre. So again, things can change, but I wish we could have 30 side years. So, when I like to use that cliche phrase that, fertility is not a destination, but rather a journey, also assures me some stability to my position. But anyway, that's where we want to head. Can we get the other? And so a couple of comments. On the grain seeker, I have a graduate student. We're looking at grain sorghum. We have very good yield potential. With support from the Soybean Promotion Board, we've been looking at lime. Particularly, differences between pelletized and regular and agricultural lime. In conclusion, I will say, agricultural lime is, the only advantage of using pelletized lime is that it is easy to apply, okay? But it's not, at the end of the day, you have a volume of acidity that needs a volume of neutralizing power, okay? And this, in addition to this, we've been looking into sampling, okay? And of all the properties, I will say that pH is probably the one that varies the most. This is an example. In this particular case, you say we took a sample every acre. This is a soybean field, and where you see red is that it needs lime, okay? And we have a machine, a pH sensor, that it is a various machine with a pH sensor that takes a sample every 8 seconds and collects pH. So we can take 20, 30 samples per acre, and this is an idea of this is the type of information we get. Again, the same idea, where it says red, where it needs lime. For instance, you can see here in this corner that we will have applied lime to the whole acre. So in reality, only a few places need lime. The thing with pH, if you take a soil sample of acidic pH and a soil sample that is alkaline and you mix them, the pH is going to be acidic. So acidic pH drives the sample. So see, this will have resulted on probably over lime in some areas, maybe a third of an acre, a tenth of an acre that we may not notice, but it might affect. And I think there is some good potential here on this. We're trying to, I would like to see this on a rice soybean rotation. We have the issues with overliming. And again, this is like a 50-acre field. It took us like 3 hours to do that field. Now, for this or any technology, my experience is, technology is not turnkey. It took us 2 years really to get to this point that I'm comfortable with this sensor. Becoming familiar, calibrating, and making sure the water we use is buffered. Contrary to what the manufacturers say, no, we need to buffer the machine. The same with the green seeker. And lastly, with support with the Cotman program, something I've been interested in is looking, okay, what's the last effective time or growth stage where I can apply dry fertilizer? So I'm looking into nitrogen and potassium. And this is very interesting, actually. I'm not a climate expert, but I know we've been looking at heat unit accumulation in the last 5 years. we've been accumulating 100 heat units in the same amount of time. For a cotton plant, that means that the progression towards physiological maturity gets faster. You know, in a crop like cotton, that's very important. Look at this. In 2010, the green columns, what I did there, we applied a blanket application of 40 units, 40 pounds of N. Then we came back, at first square, at first bloom, 150 heat units, 300, 450 units, with 40 additional units. In 2010, you see, if we didn't have everything by first square, we lost a lot of yield, okay? So in the past, and I don't know, this is 2010. Now in 2011, what I did is I went back and applied 60 pounds per acre. And we still saw some decrease, but this difference is not significant. So two things could happen here. Again, going back to the idea of optimum range. In cotton, the optimum range, you can maximize yields between 60 and 130 pounds per acre. Maybe 2011, 60 pounds were enough, or maybe it didn't make any difference, where I waited longer. This year I incorporated a treatment that is only 60 pounds per acre, okay? Nothing more. I guess the conclusion here is we need to make sure that at least we have 60 units of N by the first 40 days of a cotton plant. And then I think if we had a tool, we are looking into that to decide whether or not we need to apply more, that would be great.